Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. We are back, ladies and gents, listeners and viewers. And of course, don't get used to this, me in the hot seat. We know I cannot carry the show with my charm and charisma. I'm handing the metaphorical keys to none other than Lucas Yearmans, the new host of the Second Tier Podcast. Lucas, are you excited?
I am super excited. I'm glad we're finally getting started with it as well, mate. So, yeah, I'm really good to go. I know we've got a lot to talk about already. Championship's not even close to starting, and yet here we go. There's loads to talk about.
Yeah, you sound as buzzed as I do. Before we get into it, we're going to do some quick fire questions. We're going to make sure you're fit and proper. So, Lucas, are you bloody ready?
Are you basically head of recruitment here as well?
Head of recruitment, technical director, and I'm also doing the fit and proper person's test.
I'm ready to go, mate.
Righto. This one's from Fly1882 on our Discord, and he asks, and this is an important one, which club do you follow?
Should I mention my work team? Because my work team is a championship team that I have to follow. I say have to because they've not given me much reason to say want to for the last few years.
We all have to follow our clubs.
We have to follow. I have to follow
Go on.
Stoke City Football Club.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like the fond sibling that you just don't get on with, isn't it? For this pod, so I have to watch Stoke every week for the day job, which is what I do, covering the football club. So that's it. They're my team. Stoke City FC, red and white, up the Potters, all that jazz.
Contractually obliged. Yeah. That's what it is. Next question is Dan from our Patreon. He asks, VAR in the Championship, yes or no?
That's a really good question, and that could be one that will basically determine my my longevity here. Not in its current guise, no. Okay. No, it needs a lot of work to it, doesn't it? It's not ready. Let's let the smaller Premier League try and get it right, fix it up, and things like the World Cup. Let them get it right until they perfect it, and then we'll have it in the Championship so it doesn't ruin things too much. I don't know if it can ever be perfect, but I think it's always worth. I've seen enough, especially for Stoke, enough things go wrong when it comes to refereeing decisions. I think it's something I could do with.
Okay. They
could do with, but not currently. It needs a bit of an adjustment. It needs a little bit more to it.
I'm pro VAR, so this season will go very well for us, disagreeing on a lot of things.
Yeah, good. We're off to a great start, aren't we? Yeah, that's what the people want.
Exactly. Final question is from Ryan Smith on our Discord, and he asks, do you think you could score a goal from your own half?
Anyone who says they can is delusional.
That's bollocks.
Mr. Peach.
That's bollocks.
Have you tried? Have you done it? Have you tried?
No. Okay. I've actually never been asked that question directly from anybody. Have I tried? No, I haven't.
Well, I'm going to ask you.
We have tried to be able to try. We were denied by the staff at Sheffield Wednesday. They said no. But we can get it recorded. We can get it on the record that I can score from my own half.
First attempt as well. You have to do first try.
Why not? I can definitely do it.
If you want to put yourself out there right now, I think it's a really good way for us to kickstart the relaunch of the podcast, is getting you to a football pitch somewhere nearby and having a go at that. I don't need that question answering for me because the answer is probably no. So I'm happy to die never knowing, never finding out, never trying. I just think I know the answer already. Okay. And if I did do it, it'd be a fluke.
It'll be a fluke. So, okay. Well, okay. If I don't do it, then it's down to me retiring.
Okay.
I retired a while ago, but if I do it, it's not a fluke. So I know I can. So we're good.
Okay. All right. Okay. If you do it, are we going to say how many takes it took, or are you just going to pretend it was first try?
No. It'll be first try.
Oh, okay.
We'll live stream it. We might not, but we will.
I'm gonna say that a normal person would say that they can't do that, but I know I'm appreciating your confidence that you're doubling down on it. I'd say you're tripling down on it.
Quadruple down at this point, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I'm happy to carry on answering questions. I'm also happy to get into it with the Championship stuff. Do you want me to take it from here? Actually, seeing as that'll be sort of my role for the future.
It's best for everyone that you do. So please,
take
it away from me.
How much did you hate it on a scale of 1 to 10?
9. I mean, that's my only 4 minutes on this show that I'm ever going to host. So you're welcome. You're welcome, everybody.
Well, let's get straight into it. Shall we start with the Rob Edwards sacking? Because the managerial situation in the Championship is kicking off already. Like I say, the season's in its sort of very early stages, and yet we don't even have fixtures yet. We're already working out all the sort of complications of managers leaving and arriving elsewhere. So Rob Edwards sacked by Wolverhampton Wanderers. They brought in Cesar Peixoto, which have been practicing a lot. We'll start with the Edwards bit. There was a lot of speculation, wasn't there, around the sort of final couple of months of them in the Prem, that things weren't going to plan, that perhaps all wasn't as it seems. This person that had clearly been brought in to bring them back up into the Championship, now not going to be taking them for the first game of the Championship, never mind half a season. What do you make of that news, firstly?
Yeah, it's a strange scenario. Of course, a lot of people say, or saying, he was brought in to do a job for the Championship. But I think you can't ignore what's happened between his appointment and them getting relegated. The fans turned pretty quickly towards the end of the season. So there's a lot of discourse surrounding that. But of course, I think the most important, or the first thing you point out is he was sacked somewhat in fairly amusing circumstances. I will say that before I get into it. It was reported that he found out on social media. And the club and he contacted the club and they were like, yeah, so about that. So the one way you can look at it and go, if you're a bastard, you like it. If you dislike Rob Edwards, you like it. If you're an empath, you're like, oh, it's a bit harsh. But I think the strangeness of the sacking comes from the timing of it. The timing's a bit strange. Why leave it weeks after the season has ended and then do it? And of course, he's had an impact in signing two players, Raul Jimenez and Kieran Trippier. He was also in the launch video for Raul Jimenez as well, by the way, which I find it very, very odd. So the timing is the strange element to it. What it does point towards for me is, I think Wolves, just as much as they need a restructure on the pitch and in the coaching department and managerial department, they also need a restructure off the pitch, because this just cries as a club who's very disorganised, and that's why ultimately they've been relegated.
So the last thing that Wolves need when they're starting a Championship season, and that's before we talk about the two signings they've made already, is going into it with a whirlwind of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like they've done that now by, bringing in a new manager. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the off the pitch stuff. It felt like it was a club in dire need of a reset when it came to the middle of their time in the Prem last season. And now it's like, well, we don't really know what to expect from Wolves now, because they've just given us a whole load of extra question marks. I loved the Trippier signing. And I love the Raul. I mean, Raul Jimenez is a goal scorer in the Premier League, certified. So, what a signing! I wonder how they'll be feeling now, because you wonder if it's all a bit of a surprise for people like Rob Edwards. What will it be like for the likes of Kieran Trippier and Raul Jimenez that you assume thought they'd be signing for Wolves and for Rob Edwards?
Yeah, I think that's the strange element of it. There was some reports that Kieran Trippier was ready to rip up his agreement off the back of it. Whether or not they're true, and I think they have been rubbish by now. But it just goes to show how much of an impact Rob Edwards had in bringing those players in. So yes, you are right to say, what would they be thinking? My only thing I would throw in that direction is modern football doesn't operate how it used to do. Like, Neil Warnock signing bloody Paddy McKennie everywhere he goes. Managers have their favourites. And yes, Rob Edwards brought these players in, but ultimately we know that the average tenure of a manager is about 8 months. So we know likelihood is a manager's not going to last the entire season. So really, these players can't stand on that element. They have got to buy into the club as much as they do the manager. That being said, it's not to take away from the manager. At the time, Rob Edwards having a big say in bringing those players in. But Raul Jimenez has history at Wolves. We know that. And Kieran Trippier he's in the twilight of his career. He's 35. So he's in a position where he's, I wouldn't say lucky, but it's one of his final contracts. So for that to be at a big club like Wolves, he's got to play for the club, not the manager.
They are really good signings, aren't they? Like, they're strong.
Signings. Yeah. Strong experience. Yeah, it's perfect.
A lot of change needed, but it's like you say, the experience is one thing that Wolves were crying out for, and one who knows the club, one who just knows how to be a pro. But I just think, like, Rob Edwards, love him or hate him, he's got form of doing well in the Championship, bar that second season in return with Luton after they got relegated. Middlesbrough looked good. Obviously, when they went up, there's a bit of an underdog story to them. I know he's become sort of hero to villain quite quick, but it does feel like he seems a more steady pair of hands back in the Championship than Cesar Peixoto does, without knowing much about him before he comes to England. I don't know. Do you think it's a risk?
It's definitely a risk because Rob Edwards, I'm not going to throw those same old trips you get. Like Rob Edwards knows the league and Cesar Peixoto's, he's an unknown. I don't think that really works because Sergei Rakirovic came in last season and proved everybody wrong at Hull. Don't think it matters an awful lot. Similarly, a little bit of Tonda Eckert doing a good job with Southampton, although, yes, Spygate tax is applied there. But with Rob Edwards, you are getting a manager who has had promotion before. For what it's worth, though, I do think it was the right thing to sack Edwards because I don't think he's at the level Wolves need to go back up. It's a very competitive division. West Ham are coming down. There'll be Southampton in the mix. There'll be other clubs as well who have stayed down. Sheffield United as well, parachute payment team. They could well be up there. They've got a bit more leeway with recruiting players. So it's a very competitive league. So do you really want to risk it with a manager who's only been promoted to the Premier League once, but has also been relegated several times in his career as well, with Luton from the Premier League? We'll count the Luton one into the League One as well, and of course Wolves too. So I think it was the right decision. It's just whether or not, like you said, we come into this Wolves side with a lot more questions than we do answers because they've gone for an unknown in Portugal, but it has paid off for Wolves before with Nuno, with Bruno Lager. These things do pay off for them.
Well, that's one of many managerial changes that we've seen so far in the Championship, and when the season kicks off, we know we're going to see many more. One of the more earlier ones was, of course, we knew that Roy Hodgson was leaving at the end of the season on an interim job, and then it was speculation about who were Bristol City going to bring in. You speak to a lot of Bristol City fans, and they're sort of getting a bit impatient with it feels like steady ownership, but sort of a lack of willingness to try and go that extra yard to try and give Bristol City the best chance of getting themselves into the Premier League. But I really like the appointment they have made. So it's Michael Skubala, of course, who was Lincoln City manager, and he did so well with Lincoln City in League One. Firstly, before we crack on with talking about the appointment itself, were you surprised he left Lincoln, a project that kind of still feel like it was just getting going?
That's a great question. I don't think I am surprised. I mean, there were reports of a new deal being signed at Lincoln. There are also reports of Bristol City going for John Mousinho and Skubala missing out there. So there was a lot up in the air. But I think, firstly, it's a good appointment. Bristol City are a stable club in the Championship who will give Skubala a bit more scope to develop. He'll be able to work with better players, and ultimately I think it's a right next step in his career. My only question mark is whether or not Bristol City were the right club for him. I know I said that before the end of last season, but it does feel like Bristol City are moving in the right direction by making those structural changes off the pitch. Brian Tinian, long-time technical director at the club, he's left. They've appointed James Ellis as their sporting director. He was head of recruitment at Arsenal from 2021 until taking their technical director role last year. So that could be seen as a bit of a coup. So I think it's a good appointment. I'm not surprised he's left Lincoln. I think it's the right next step. It's just whether or not he can get the ground going in the direction it needs to go in, because we're in a period of stagnation at Ashton Gate now.
Well, he said, he did an interview with the local radio station, BBC Radio Bristol. It felt like it was the right time to move to an ambitious club that wants to get promoted as well. Mm-hmm. It's hard to leave a club when you've been successful, but I love a challenge and a new challenge. It was an interesting quote, because I'm imagining that he just felt like he'd run his race at Lincoln. And I say, like, Michael Skubala will always now be I guess a modern legend for the football club, getting them back into the second tier for the first time. And I don't know how many years it is. It's a very long time. I just thought he'd want to try and give him an extra year, but maybe he feels like his race is run there.
I think that's a really good way of framing it. I mean, to say Bristol City are an ambitious club is interesting.
That caught my attention as well. I mean,
but you are right in saying, I think with Lincoln, you are right in saying that he's run his race there. He's taken them as far as he feels he can take them. And we all know that Lincoln, they're not going to be favourites to stay in the Championship. They're going to be favourites to go down. They're ambitious, but they're ambitious in a sense that they want to compete as opposed to push on, whereas Bristol City are in that position, similar to Derby, similar to other clubs in the Championship, similar size, where they're ready to make that next step. Well, what does that next step look like? Is it competing for the playoffs? Is it getting into the Premier League? And I think Michael Skubala putting himself in that position, he's got a much better chance of progressing his own career and with the football club than he does with Lincoln. So I wouldn't say it's a sad end to the story. I think it's maybe a bittersweet one because he's only gone to another Championship club, and Skubala and Lincoln, they've defied the odds for years. But it's just as much down to Lincoln's operating culture as much as it is Michael Skubala being a very good coach as well.
It's just not as romantic, is it?
No.
It's just not as as romantic as a story just to see him in the dugout of a different team. He's also, talk of a new era. It's kind of a new era for him as well. We'll get onto his coaching department sticking around at Lincoln, but he's brought in Ian Birchnell, who's been in charge of clubs in England, Scotland, Sweden, Norway. So I wonder if this is a new era of Skubala ball as well, and what they're going to try and do.
I really like the Ian Birchnell appointment. I've spoken to quite a few people about it, mainly because obviously he spent a long time in the lower leagues and in different countries. I had a Notts County friend called Chris who told me that his teams don't play backwards. They don't play backwards. They want to play forwards. And likewise, a Rotherham fan informed me that he was up for the job at Rotherham, but I think he was holding out for this one, to be a number 2, which again it strikes me as a fairly ambitious move. But I do feel like Birchnell is a massive appointment. What I know of him, he's very progressive with how he plays. Michael Skubala, the frustrating thing for me again, there's been a lazy narrative surrounding him that he's just Route 1 because his Lincoln side played Route 1. But good coaches adapt to what you have and what they've got in front of them. And at Lincoln, it wasn't the most talented squad. Yeah, very aware of it. They got promoted, but they got promoted because they were very savvy in what they did, and they adapted, they changed. But with Ian Birchnell, there's an interesting football philosophy there that is not of what you expect of Skubala. So I think you are right. I do think we are going to see a new era of Skubala ball, and I'm very, very intrigued to see how it progresses because this Bristol City side isn't set up to play very direct, and it's not also set up to play possession football. So actually, it might be perfect, just somewhere in the middle.
I then think that brings us into Lincoln City, and they've kept the 2 assistant coaches, which were Chris Cohen and Tom Shaw. They're taking on a dual head coach role, which is not very common. What do you make of that decision? How do you feel? It's not that Sean Dyche meme all over again, utter woke nonsense of a 2-man partnership as head coach.
Yeah, it does stink of woke. You took that line out of my mouth.
Good start. It's a good sign things are coming in. A great minds think alike.
It's definitely interesting. I don't know much of Tom Shaw. Apparently, he was on the coaching books at Derby, so there's my interest. But I know Chris Cohen was part of Nathan Jones's coaching team when they solidified Luton in the Championship, and also got them on the cusp of promotion before heading to Southampton, which, less said about that, the better. But I think for me, Lincoln have this habit of doing things very different. Very, very different. The way they recruit, how they operate behind the scenes, it's not a conventional football club. They know their place in the football food chain, if you like, and they have to operate differently to make sure they excel within it. So going down the dual head coach role is something that we very rarely see. The Cowleys sort of operated in a similar way, didn't they? Danny sort of... Yeah,
it felt like they were for a while, and then all of a sudden it's just Danny Cowley became the man. I don't really know, sort of maybe he wanted the spotlight more. Maybe he wanted it more.
Well, he wanted it more. So there we go. Football cliche number 1 done. I think my only drawbacks there are experience for Cohen and Shaw. Both are 39. Both have never been head coaches, if you like. They're a team in a new league. Will they command the same level of respect? Obviously, they've got to recruit players who aren't League One players, if you like. They've got to recruit players to be able to play in the Championship. So are they going to command the same level of respect? Also, joint head coaches doesn't work for long either. Very, very specific moment in time for Derby. Liam Rossini and Wayne Rooney were both made interim head coaches at Derby together. It lasted 3 games before Wayne Rooney took the helm. And Liverpool did it with Roy Evans, Gerard Houllier, which Gerard Houllier ended up taking full custody, if you like, of the club in a sense. So, will it work? Maybe, but if it's going to work at a football club, it's going to be Lincoln because, as I say, they just do things different.
Is your question sort of more how long will it last as a pairing rather than how long will it be successful for? Money's on Chris Cohen, I think. If one of them's gonna, this is without knowing anything about Tom Shaw, but I just think Chris Cohen with his playing career is a little bit more a sexier name, maybe in terms of.
But
name appeal.
Tom Shaw might be the brains, but you are right. I think it is a question of how long will it last.
Yeah.
But also, do they need a more experienced leader? Which again is maybe a bit of a lazy cliche with Championship football.
Just throwing them all for this chat, aren't we?
Exactly. It's been a while since we recorded, so we've just got to get those cobwebs dusted off. But it's just one of them where, will it work? How long will it work? And will they actually end up turning to a more experienced head?
Talking about the managerial merry-go-round, the managerial market, whatever you want to talk about, however you want to call it, and the new faces that seem to be arriving. Brand new face at Wolves, recognisable but still new faces in the dugout for Bristol City and Lincoln City as well. Watford, obviously, because it's the start of a new season, they have brought in a new manager as well, Alessio Dionisi, and he's only 46, Justin. He's 46 years old. This will be his 10th managerial job. I have never known a manager and football club be more perfect for each other.
Yeah, what? I'm almost exhausted talking about Watford and managers because we have to do it every 3 months. We literally do it once a quarter, and it is exhausting. But of course, this is very on brand for Watford, going for someone who nobody from these shores would have heard of. We all know they go for a manager nobody's heard of, or go for an old English guy who is at the end of his career or needs to recover his career a little bit. But yeah, Dionisi's I wouldn't say he's left field because what's left field for Watford? No idea. But yeah,
nothing surprises me anymore.
Yeah, especially with Watford. But he's fairly active in the job market, so maybe it will work for them. Neither will commit to each other. It's a bit of an open relationship, isn't it? I'll flirt with others, you'll flirt with others. We'll see how it goes. Funnily enough, as well, I read about him that his teams like controlling games. They can be fun going forward. But the games can be a bit of a basketball one. So maybe he's just here for a good time, not a long time, Lucas.
I think you've probably nailed it perfectly. Genuine question, without really seeing his Watford team just yet. How long? What's your instinct saying on how long this relationship will last?
Well, based on that fun element of how he approaches games of football, because he is an unknown, I think this Watford squad is geared to be quite fun, quite an attractive side to watch. So it could work. But last season, Paolo Pezzolano lasted until October. That's the benchmark. If he can break the 4-month mark, crikey me, he'd be the longest serving manager since Tom Cleverley.
Some relative success.
Yeah. He would have outlasted Javi Gracia, Pezzolano, of course, Ed Still. But ultimately, if he isn't a success, we know why. We know why. The club is its own worst enemy. We know managers aren't even getting short-term levity. What's the opposite to longevity? How are they meant to build if they're not even getting?
It's not a word.
The short to mid-term just doesn't exist in Watford's culture, neither does the long-term. So actually, how can they build anything in the interim to create the foundations of success? I think that's the question you got to ask. But yeah, how is anyone going to build a Watford? They're not. That's why they're also going to stagnate.
Yeah, mess around and find out. We'll watch Watford as we always do with just one eye on the potential next one.
Yeah,
I think is the best bet. Well, I like the next managerial appointment that's come to pass. So Michael O'Neill did a really good job. I mean, again with my Stoke City hat on, he's I think in terms of the barren Championship years since the relegation, he's probably one of the most adored. There's not many to choose from, but one of the most adored sort of Stoke managers since they came back down. He did a great job at Blackburn. Blackburn fans wanted him to stay. He's committed himself to Northern Ireland, which did surprise me. To be fair, I thought he was ready for another club job, but he's decided to go back to international football, and so there was a lot of rumours with who Blackburn would turn to next, and it's just a wholesome appointment. I like the idea of Tony Mowbray being back at Blackburn Rovers. Nicest man in football gets a job again, and it is nice with all the things that we know about sort of his last few years. It is nice to see him back in the dugout and at a team that he obviously had relative success with too.
He did, I think, a great success with Blackburn because obviously he gets them from League One into the Championship and he stabilises them. And I do really like this appointment, not only because it's Tony Mowbray and because he adds that wholesome factor to football. You can't dislike him. He's easy to love. So I think him being a recognisable face is important. Him being a safe pair of hands is important. In what is a fairly tumultuous time for Blackburn, with the fan discourse against the ownership, and we're all asking the question, what's next for them? Are they going to be relegation favourites again? They probably are. But I think Tony Mowbray represented a very fruitful time at Ewood Park in comparison to other years. I think first and foremost, player development. Adam Armstrong, Ben Brereton-Diaz, Darrell Lenihan, Lewis Travis, David Raya. They all came through and became better under his stewardship before leaving or being sold on. But for me, I think Blackburn need to get back to a level where they buy low, bring players through the academy, develop them, sell them, reinvest it, because they've been really bad at selling players at peak value. Really, really bad at it, which is why I think they stunted their own growth, because I think they could have been a huge success had the ownership been a little bit more, or whoever's running the club in recruitment, been a bit more forward-thinking in selling players at the right time and then reinvesting that money back into the squad. They haven't done that. Tony Mowbray represents that, I think.
Current Blackburn, as they are right now, I don't think there's probably a more sensible appointment than him. Just as steady. There's a lot of noise that comes out of Blackburn in terms of, like you say, player recruitment, outgoings, their ability to sell players. Where's the investment? Is there investment? I think staff within the football club fed up. I think just having someone, a figure of optimism, even if he's not a figure for the long term, I think is a really smart move, because again, he's well liked in the industry anyway, especially in the second tier of English football, but also he's someone that I think had a really good connection with not just the Blackburn team, but the Blackburn staff and of course the Blackburn fans.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to bring up, is the fans, because attendances have dwindled again, and of course it's going to happen because fans are asking where the club's going, and they need a manager who can come back in and because I think as well as that, he played a fairly attractive style of football. It was flexible in what their approach was, but also he doesn't talk shit either. He just says it how it is, which I think there's been, I won't say squabbles, but Jon Dahl Tomasson, he was outspoken in the club's approach, and there was frustration there. Similarly with Aaron Ishmael, but they need a manager. The club needs a manager that the fans just get. And Tony Mowbray is that. And also, again, it's impossible to dislike him. So for all the will in the world, I hope he has a lot of success. But Blackburn are a difficult club at the moment, and it's going to be a difficult job. Can Tony Mowbray guide them into something that isn't a relegation battle again? Remains to be seen. But he's going to do it putting smiles on faces.
Speaking of difficult, I feel like it's a perfect segue to talking about the next team. Southampton. It wouldn't be an episode of Second Tier without talking about Spygate. It has to come up at some point. Yeah. And no, it will continue. We'll be here next May and still talking about it probably in one way or another. So, series of events sort of since probably the last podcast is that Tonda Eckert did a long video. I skipped through it and just saw the highlights of his sort of piece to camera, taking responsibility, acknowledging sort of things and from mistakes from their point of view, and in doing it and wrongdoing. And then it seems that Southampton now are sticking with their man, and they backed Tonda Eckert to learn from his mistakes and not get him in trouble again, forgiving him and trusting him to finish the job, I suppose. Firstly, what did you make of the video, and then we'll get into what it could mean next for Southampton.
I do feel like it could have been a written statement and then a video, because I think there's a lot of uncertainty with the FA investigation and when that gets concluded, because at the time of recording there is a chance he could still be banned, whether or not it's a likely scenario, but you carry a lot of risk, so I think it could make everyone look a little bit silly should he get a ban from the FA. But with...
Think he will? What's your gut saying?
The worst possible scenario happened for Southampton with Spygate. They were kicked out of the playoffs. They were fined. That was as bad as it could have got. Maybe a heavier fine, but ultimately they missed out on the chance to play to get promoted into the Premier League. The worst possible scenario for Tonda Eckert is he gets banned, just like it happened with. I think the reference that we've used is the Canadian women's team. the Canadian coaching staff. They were banned for, I think it was several months, if you like. So that's the worst possible scenario again. So if that happens, it's not ideal. And also the evidence that came out of the reviews, if you like, or the panels that judge Southampton, for use of a better word, is there was staff that felt pressured in going to these. It was a pretty damning stuff, and with that, it just doesn't look great. So I would expect the worst and hope for the best in this scenario. But like I said, it could make Southampton look a little bit silly because they'll have to go to the market to find an interim or a new coach. I don't really know what their approach will be.
Yeah. What's your gut before we sort of see more players coming through the door and pre-season underway and all that sort of jazz with what Southampton could do next year? Because I feel like now no one really knows whether or not to say that Southampton are a good side or not. Like, it feels a little bit taboo to say that you saw how well they can play football and how good they were. And for a long time, they're everyone's sort of second favourite team because of the sort of progression they made second half of the season. And then all this happened. So I don't really know what to make or think of Southampton in terms of what they can or can't do.
Yeah, I mean, the narrative's going to be, well, they were so good because they're spying on everybody, which is going to be frustrating to try and beat off. They
didn't need to spy on Stoke, I know that for a fact.
Nobody needs to do that. We know you're going to finish 17th, so there you go, earning fans already. For me, I do actually think it's going to help them a little bit. It feels like after that video came out, I know it's been a few weeks since it happened, but after the videos came out, because I know Dagan Solak did one as well, the owner, he was very bullish. I feel like a very significant amount of siege mentality was developing at that point, which I think is going to help a club. It's us against them. It's fuck you. We're going to try and do what we need to do here, and it doesn't matter, because I think at this point they don't really give a shit about what anyone thinks. And I think all that uncertainty with those two videos that came out, it was quashed, because they go out and sign Daniel Peretz, the goalkeeper, who was tremendous between February and the end of the season. So couple that with siege mentality and them going out and getting players and being very bullish in their approach, it's kind of intimidating. So an early prediction could be that they're going to be a promotion contender once again, but we need to know what happens with this FA investigation.
How tasty will Southampton v Borough be?
Oh, that being said, maybe there's a picture from the World Cup that's come about where there's a Southampton flag next to a Borough flag. So maybe there's been a repairing of the relationship there.
Maybe they're just nice people.
Maybe they're just nice people. In football?
No. Right, well, we're not far off now. The fixtures coming out. We talked about them a moment ago, but we'll have a couple of episodes before and after that reflecting on the fixtures, and then it feels real again, right? Once all that starts, then we're back into it. What World Cup? Yeah,
I mean, the World Cup's filled a very nice void. It's been needed, I think, especially after how this season ended with the McBurney moment. So you always want to get back straight into it. Not been the case. So the fixture's coming back out next week. Is going to be fun. You can smell the grass again, which is always the first thing that I think about, because grass smells fantastic as you walk out into a football ground.
I've never,
mate. Sensors. Get the sensors going.
Oh, I'm quitting. It was a nice run.
Hey, it gets weird. Don't worry about that. It gets weird. But no, it's like you say, it gets weird. Yeah. Transfer news has been quiet, which has been annoying. But the fixtures coming out, I think, might kickstart a few things. So.
Yeah, I think it's going to start heating up soon as we get pre-season sort of kick-started as well. Well, what a first episode. We're here. Feels like we've been doing it for years.
Oh, yeah. We had to... Obviously, because we've had a bit of a break, we've had to just touch on all the news that's happened, and the most significant stuff has been all the managerial changes that are going on. But of course, we're going to get straight back into it. It's going to be business as usual, if you like, as we head into the season. So yeah, stick around. There's going to be episodes coming out now twice a week. So we're not stopping. We're going. This is it.
Full steam ahead.
Yeah,
full steam ahead. So 26, 27, almost here, just around the corner. As I said, in the meantime, Justin and I, plenty of episodes, plenty of stuff to chew the fat over, all things Championship. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Lucas Yeomans.
I've been Justin Peach.
We'll see you for the next one. Thanks for listening.
Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. We are back, ladies and gents, listeners and viewers. And of course, don't get used to this. Me in the hot seat. It's not happening. We know I cannot carry... Yeah, fuck that already.
Put that in at the end.
Yeah. That's actually a good Easter egg, that is.